once downloaded the line graph for the national debt. And the odd thing was that it didn't really explode during or after World War II. It always confused me till one day I heard it was because there was so much unemployment from the Great Depression that we never really recovered from before World War II. But when you do look at the more modern times during my lifetime, Ronald Reagan was, the Democrats are tax and spend, which I agree with, but he certainly was a hypocrite about it. He cut taxes and spent money on the military with his 700-ship Navy. And if you look at the graph, the national debt exploded under Reagan. And the same was true for the Bush tax cuts and the Trump tax cuts. Overall, it's fair to say that the Republicans have more to do with the problem of the national debt than the Democrats do. The last time we had a balanced budget was under Clinton. And the same is true with the economy. While the stock market is not considered the economy, it certainly represents it pretty well, I would say. And the S&P 500 represents the stock market pretty well. It's the 500 biggest companies in the United States. And if you look at the graph on that, I would have to say that the economy has done better under Democrats than it has under Republicans. And I would say substantially so. Now, these tax cuts have always benefited the wealthy more than the average people. There may have been token benefits for the average taxpayer, but by far and away it's the wealthy that benefited. And, well, it should, because they contribute to the elected officials. The return on investment for them is substantial. And that's a problem. Money in politics. Never a lender or a borrower be. I think it was Shakespeare that wrote that. And I agree. That's kind of the way I've lived my life. I think that's true for governments too. As our national debt grows, more and more of the taxes we do pay in has to get shelled out for interest on that debt. And it's just getting worse and worse, and it can't keep going like this. Abraham Lincoln said, we don't need to worry about the debt we owe ourselves, but the problem is now is that so much of our debt is held by the rest of the world, because America has always been a great investment. It's good to put your money into the United States, but we're running into a point where that's not going to be true anymore, and when they call in that debt, we're going to have problems. The idea that tariffs can be used to pay down our debt is just nonsense. It's just an inflation tax. Tariffs won't bring back any high-paying factory jobs. They are gone. Automation has gotten rid of them. And there's always going to be the competition now that the world is caught up. I mean, after World War II, we were the only industrialized nation that was intact. Those jobs just don't exist anymore. You might as well try to empty out a lake by shoveling the water out and throwing it on shore. It'll just find its way back into the lake again. Welcome to the world economy. It has served us well as Americans. We don't realize it, but we are richer for having much cheaper goods. I know that when China came online and I started buying tools as a machinist, their quality was excellent and it was half the price. And that is true for all sorts of things. We are richer for international trade. As far as waste, fraud, and abuse is concerned, I don't think there was all that much. You can always find antidote, antidotes. I can't pronounce that word. You can always find things that isolated things that are waste, fraud, and abuse. We had an inspector generals to keep an eye on all that, and Donald Trump fired them all. If you want waste, fraud, and abuse, the first thing you want to do is get rid of them. So in that sense, I would say Donald Trump is the swamp. There wasn't a swamp before, but there is now. Government is like a counterbalance to the private sector. The idea that there's nothing the government does that the private sector can't do better is just foolishness. I mean, there are things that the private sector won't do because there's just no money in it. There are things that the private sector does that makes huge amount of money for themselves that the government could do much more efficiently and better. And health insurance is a perfect example of that. It's just a mess. Every time you change jobs, you change insurance companies, you have to find a new network to be in. If you could take that away from the employer, I'm sure the employers would be happy about that. Obamacare was a midway thing that doesn't really work well. It's half bad. I mean, if we should just go all in or nothing, do nothing, leave it the way it is. But we didn't. I looked at it like I have a prescription drug, and when I get the paperwork for it, when I get the prescription, there's paperwork that says the cost is like $58 for a 3-month supply, and that the insurance company paid $860 or something like that, and I owe nothing. So the insurance company pays $860 for the same thing I would have to pay $58 for if I didn't have insurance. It's a scam. And it certainly incentivizes people to have health insurance. If we could just cut out the insurance companies, make it all under the government, we'd all be far better off. It'd be a lot less of a mess, a lot less paperwork. Capitalism, left to its own devices, will concentrate wealth on the few. And I suppose eventually it will, there can be only one. I think there was a TV show, Highlander, I think it was called, that used that line. There can be only one. And make no mistakes, there are plenty of personalities out there who strive to be the one at the expense of everyone else. Everybody wants to be the slave driver. I should have mentioned DEI when I was talking about racism. Getting rid of that totally was wrong. Maybe there was abuses in it, I'm not sure. Certainly, if you have a equally qualified candidates, you go for more diversity. Then, you know, they say that employers tend to hire themselves, and that's not really a good thing. I learned that in a management class. So you want qualified people, but you also want to diversify. Whether or not that was taken to heart in the government programs or not, I don't know. But it's certainly the way it should work. You want your employees, your companies to represent the area diversity. I mean, that's just common sense. I think that's all I have to say for now. Oh, and another thing I learned in that management class was the dark triad. These are people you don't want to hire or promote. Uh, the triad is narcissism, lack of empathy towards others, and Machiavellianism. Um, uh, Machiavelli is just the end justifies the means. I've heard it argued that that's not really what it is, but I mean, the arguments I've heard fall short. You don't do wrong to end up with a plus. Two wrongs don't make a right. Um, in the case of Donald Trump, he likes to put his name all over everything. Everything he does is just great and wonderful, and everything his adversaries do is just terrible, the worst thing in the world. I would say that's narcissism. His policies towards immigrant, lack of empathy towards others, no question about that. The whole immigration thing is completely blown out of proportion. And he does so to give his base a common enemy, I guess. I don't know if he does that because he's racist or it's his strategy, but whatever. It's no empathy for others. What benefits him is what he's for. His money and his power is what he's for. Uh, what was the other one? Oh, the Machiavelli and justifies means. I think I hit them all. But I think Donald Trump is, a real perfect candidate. In fact, I seen this in 2016 was the first time I ever voted. And I voted against him just for that purpose, just because of that. That's what I saw him as, that kind of person. Okay, that's enough for this little section. Here's a few odds and ends. Gerrymandering seems like a solvable problem. If you work for Google, simply lay a grid across the state and then expand and contract each grid square equally in each direction until they're all of equal population. Seems like a very solvable problem. Social Security has been a problem. The demographics we know don't work all that well and haven't for a long time. We should probably go to a more ease into a more self paid investments for retirement so that each person who works for a living in a sense becomes part owner of America through the stock market, kind of like the 401ks or IRAs do, but embedded into the government. Make everyone have to be part of the government and make it so they have to vote. Um, I don't know if an investor in the stock market should be considered an owner or more of a banker. I don't know. I know they're supposed to be an owners. I'm not sure if that's right or not. I think people who work for a company, a publicly traded company, should get paid in stock or something, so they're part owners of the companies they work for, and maybe be able to retrieve that in their retirement. Um, this CEO pay is just completely insane. It's out of hand. I mean, the CEO that got killed, for example, I mean, he shouldn't have been murdered. It was murder, but making $10 million a year. I mean, couldn't you hire 10 guys that work together for $1 million a year and be far better off? There is something wrong. And companies that become monopolies or near monopolies, as they approach that, they should somehow become government owned. That's just to keep them from wanting to be in monopoly. Um, I don't know. The pay just isn't supply and demand at that level. It's just not right. I mean, you take somebody who pumps out septic tanks or works the kill line on the meat packing plant and ask them if anybody's worth $10 million a year compared to what they make. It's just not right. I don't know how to fix that, but there's got to be a way. Um, should the president be above the law? No. I don't know how the Supreme Court could even come to that conclusion. That's not right. I don't really understand how Nixon, who was reelected in an absolute landslide, and then several months later, he had to resign from office because he tried to cover up a third-rate burglary. Compare that with what Donald Trump has done, and you can see the integrity of the country has just gone to crap. I think, well, we'll travel through the rest of this lake at high speed. I don't have anything else to rant about right now. Well, here we are at the camp at Kelly Lake. Here's the canoe landing. Not too bad. Not the best, but not the worst. A little look around. And my laundry, my Chota boots drying in the sun, and my Chota socks. My thermal shirt is drying out. We had a little rain this morning, and I got a little bit of water inside the tent, and I used my shirt to dry it off. There I'm doing dishes there. And here's my tent. It's a 4-star site, but I'd give it a 3. Oh, I suppose I should show you where I have my canoe stashed. These Kevlar canoes you want to keep out of the sun as much as you can anyway. There's a bunch of trails around camp. Not sure they really go anywhere. I think they're just trails from people looking for wood to burn. Oh, here's a stash. Oh, there's my battery banks charging. Got all this birch wood that somebody chopped up and tried to burn it. It didn't work. It'll work later in the year when it gets all dried out after it's split. But you can't just chop down a tree, and even if it's dead, a birch tree, and have it burn. Doesn't work very good. Here's a pro tip for you when it's hot and sunny. If you leave your rain fly completely on, it gets like a sauna in there. So I have a clothespin here to pull up the rain fly here where the sun's not coming in. Same thing over here. And over here, I have partway up. I think I can move that up a little further here now that the sun is moving. Also, this is pegged out in 4 places. And you can, if you have enough rope, pull these out and tie them to a tree. I don't think it's necessary today because the air is much cooler than it has been. There's one of those trails that I followed it for a ways, but I don't see where it goes anywhere. And there's a trail over there that heads to the latrine and it keeps right on going after that. Here's another trail that seems to go to nowhere. There's also moose poop on the trail to the latrine, marking the way, you might say. Well, I better move my Chota socks inside out so the inside gets dry now. Tonight I will, if the wind dies down, I'll do a little fishing. I did catch a pike on the way here today, but I let it go because I'm ahead of schedule and I can eat extra food. And I just don't feel like cleaning one. Anyway, I'll check out that Portage, the last beast, before I get to my car. I have 2 easier Portages after that, but this one's 230 and it appears to be going over a mountain. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little there, but you get my meaning. So I'll talk to you later. Bye. Listen to the falling rain. We're getting a little bit of a thunderstorm here. A little earlier, the thunder was just constant. So I got a little bit of water in the tent this morning, but I'm think I'm going to get a lot more tonight. It's about 7:30. It's getting pretty dark out there. Can you hear the thunder? Yeah, it's raining a lot harder than it was this morning. Well, that's all I have to report here this evening. I'll see you tomorrow. Well, it's D+8. I went over to check out the next Portage, which is a beast of a Portage. It's much longer than the Sitka Portage that I hear things about being pretty tough. I don't hear much about this one, but it is much longer and seems just as hilly, and the trail seems a little more rocky, and plus it was pretty wet this morning. After that, I got back. The sun was just blazing in my eyes. I got to use my new sunglasses. And then I got back to camp and took off for the other end of Kelly Lake. Backtracked a little to see the Frank Johnson mine that I missed on the way down. And that was pretty cool. I don't know how deep it goes. I walked in, which kind of surprised me that it was a walk-in mine. Walked as far as I could. There was actually ice in there from winter still. And eventually it was too dark to see, and I stepped in a puddle and I turned around and left. The trail was blocked by a big old down tree, which I didn't do anything with. And by the way, the Portage to Burnt that I scouted had already been cleared. That was kind of nice. I did improve upon a couple of tighter spots, but it really wasn't necessary. On the way to the Johnson mine, I did catch a northern and a walleye. And right now the walleye's hanging on a clothesline. I got back here about 9 o'clock, and not long after that it started raining. And it's getting on about 2 now. It's not raining real hard, but I don't want to clean the fish out there in the rain. Can't blame me for that. So it's been a pretty lazy day. I've been eating extra food again today, just out of boredom. I hope to be out maybe on Sunday, probably on Monday. I don't think I'm going to try to fish anymore. I'm just not that interested. At least not for anything I'm going to keep. It's just too much of a pain in the ass to clean them, get rid of the remains, cooking them and cleaning up afterwards. It's just not worth it. So, let's see, I can't think of anything else that happened today. I just heard a couple guys go by in the canoe. One of them says, shit, because the site was taken, and I can't blame them for that. I wouldn't want to be paddling in the rain. It's really a lot colder out today. I'm got 3 layers on, stocking caps on. I'm in my sleeping bag here, just waiting for the rain to stop. I'm hoping the sun will come out a little later, but I don't know, it's been this long. I don't think it's going to burn it off, so I'll be packing up a cold, wet tent in the morning. So I got that to look forward to. Well, I guess that's it for now. I'll see you later. As long as I brought up the Supreme Court in my last rant, I should probably mention how few of them lied in their congressional, whatever you call it, hearing, confirmation hearing about abortion. I mean, they blatantly lied, even though they said in a roundabout way that they would follow precedents, which clearly they did not. There should be a system where they should get kicked out and they can find somebody else automatically. I mean, clearly they did wrong. I know a lot of religious people feel that abortion is murder, but like I think I said before, it's pro-life is just bad management. Anyway, I'm on my way out. This is my last day. This is that tough portage. It's not steep uphill. I think the Sitka portage had steeper parts, but short, steeper parts. Or this is a long uphill grade and a longer portage. It rained a little bit on me. I got wet, and I wound up going all the way to Sawbill and going out. So I think we will speed through this. For about the last decade of my working career, which ended on January 1st, 2017, there's a phrase going around that perception is reality. And even one time when I was in inspection, somebody asked what that even means, and I said that it means that it's okay to lie to people as long as they all believe what you say. And that was in a thin earshot of a company director, I suspect. Probably didn't do my career any good, but by then it was almost over anyway. And wasn't going anywhere. But when I think of that, I think of Donald Trump. His philosophy is perception is reality. People only know what you tell them. Since I'm a criminal, everyone else must be a criminal too, so make that accusation. I believe that democracy is the worst form of government except for all of the others. Winston Churchill said that, and I agree. there's room for improvement, and we can do some things. But let's just hope that line from the Bodines is true, that these crazy ideas, they don't last long. They come and they go in America.